to her brother. "I can take the drudgery of the housework off her, and save her in the parish." "Well, perhaps so," said Mr Goldsworthy. And, sincerely desiring to endear himself to his aristocratic wife, he consented to her wish. The whole Goldsworthy family was transferred to Redford, while, on the pretext of disinfecting it, the parsonage was painted and papered what Deb called decently, and its more offensive furniture replaced. Mary was provided with a trousseau and many useful wedding presents, a cheque from her father for £500 amongst them. They did not forgive her, but they pretended excellently that they did, without any pretence at all. They tried to make the best of a bad job. To this end, they gathered their friends together as usual at Christmas. Mr Thornycroft and the Urquharts needed no pressing. They came to see Mary the day she returned home, and showed her the old affection without asking questions. Mr Thornycroft's wedding presents to her were magnificent: a complete service of silver plate and house linen of the finest. Deb wrote to Claude, "I suppose we shall see you, as usual," for he had always spent Christmas at Redford, unless away on the other side of the world. He wrote back, "I think not, this time." He was the only defaulter. "He will never have a chance to refuse again," said Deb fiercely, as she tore up his note. His absence was too marked not to provoke frequent comment, and whenever it was alluded to in her hearing, her spine stiffened and her head went up. It was quite evident to her family that the rift in the lute was serious, and, strange to say, it was her father who might have been expected to hail the signs, who was most concerned to see them. He expostulated with her when she spoke bitterly of Billy's son, as once he had been so ready to do himself. "Well, my dear," said he, "I can understand it, if you can't. I wouldn't come myself, if I was in his place, to mix up with the sort of thing we've got to mix up with." "If I can mix up with it," quoth proud Deborah. "Yes, yes, I know, but you must consider the silly way that he's been reared. I don't like his taking upon himself to criticise what we choose to do, but no doubt Goldsworthy is a pretty big pill to swallow, to a chap like him, always so faddy about breeding and manners, and that sort of thing." "If he is too faddy for the society that I can put up with, though it be that of chimney sweeps," said Deb, "he is too faddy for me, father." "Now, my dear, don't talk so," the old man pleaded with her, quite agitated by her mood. "We all have our little weaknesses. We have to make allowances for temperament and for bringing up. Don't let a trifle like this estrange you two. Don't, Debbie, for my sake. Let me go down to my grave feeling that one of you, at least, is safe and happy, and well provided for." Decidedly, thought Deborah, father is not the same man that he was before his illness. She understood the cause of his change of views on her engagement better a few weeks later. He had parted with his eldest daughter then, and the emotion of the event had fatally affected him. Owing to some obscure working of the influence which her social position had brought to her husband, the latter had been promoted to the charge of a Melbourne parish. The affair was arranged while they were still at Redford, and just on the completion of the improvements to the local parsonage. In spite of all they had done to make this first home fit for her, family and friends were unanimous in hailing her removal to another and more distant one, out of the buzz of the gossip of her native neighbourhood, as the best thing that could have happened. But when it came to the point of sending her forth to battle with her fate alone for the rest of her life, The wrench was dreadful. She was the bravest of them all, under the ordeal. The shattered father, whose right hand she had been for so many years, and whose heart was broken with the weight of his responsibility for her misfortunes, was completely overwhelmed. She had not been gone 12 hours when Deb found him in his office chair, unable to rise from it, or to answer her questions, and he never spoke again. He made signs that he wanted Claude sent for, and when the young man quickly came, looked significant things at him and Deb, as they stood by his bedside hand in hand. Then he lapsed into stupor and died, without waiting for a third stroke. Through all the shock and sorrow of the time, Claude was Deborah's mainstay and consolation. He took the role of nearest male relative, the right to which was undisputed by Mr Goldsworthy, preoccupied with the important interests of his new parish, also by Mr Thornycroft and Jim Urquhart, who, of course, stood by, to serve her as far as she would allow them. It was Claude who gave the orders for the funeral, and superintended the ceremonies, and acted as chief mourner. It was Claude to whom the household looked for direction, as if acknowledging him to be the new master. It was on Claude's breast that Deb wept, who so rarely wept, and his word that she obeyed, as if he were already her husband. And in all that he did for her, and in all that he did not do, he showed the grace, the tact, the tenderness, the thoughtfulness of her ideal lover and gentleman. But there came a day when he fell again below the indispensable standard, when the rift in the lute that had seemed closed gaped suddenly, and this time beyond repair. It was when, after close investigation of the deceased man's affairs, and some heated interviews with one of the executors, Deb being the other, Claude discovered that the Pennycuick wealth was non-existent, that Redford was mortgaged to the hilt, and that if the estate was realised and cleared, as Deb desired it should be, nothing would be left for her and her sisters, that is to say, a paltry 300 or 400 a year amongst them, less than Deb could spend comfortably on her clothes alone. He was too upset by the discovery, and a bad quarter of an hour that Mr Thornycroft had subsequently given him, to preserve that calm demeanour which was his study and his pride. He came in to Deb, where she sat alone, and expressed his feelings as the ordinary man is wont to do to the woman who loves and belongs to him. "What could your father have been dreaming of?" he rudely interrogated her. "To let the place go to pieces like this, drifting behind year after year, and doing nothing to stop it, not cutting down one of the living expenses, not giving us the least hint of how things really were." "He gave several hints," said Deb, in that voice which always grew so portentously quiet when his was raised. "If we had had the sense to take them. I have been putting two and two together for some time, so that I am not altogether taken by surprise. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were not here, for one thing; because it was father's private business, for another." "He seems not to have made it his business to take any care of his children's interest," said Claude bitterly, "bringing you up as he has done, with the right to expect that you were to be properly provided for, and then leaving you literally paupers." "Not literally paupers," corrected Deb gently. "We shall be quite independent still. And if you want to insult my father now that he is dead, the best of fathers, if he did have misfortunes in business and make mistakes, do it somewhere else, not in this room. You have no right to take that tone with me, Deb." "No?" She raised sarcastic eyebrows. under which her deep eyes